this trick with you. I first learned about it after meeting my mentor, Dr. David T. He's a skinny little science geek who lives in Singapore. He's Asian, about 5'7", but when I saw what this man could do with women, and when I saw what women desperately wanted to do with this man, I knew I needed to learn his secret.
Why don't you become a demon as well? Both growing old, passing away, these are things that make being human beautiful. I will see my duty fulfilled!
Guess what, Sacramento? Modern dining rooms are open again. Oh, the delicious Panera favorites are waiting for you. So come on in and dine in today. While your access may go. Please keep digging to the hottest music in the 916 and 90 radio. Download the Odyssey on your smartphone and stay locked to 1025 KSFM.
Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, we love you in Canada and Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south. You're the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful May the 13th, 2021. Ronda Deportes, bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Oh, Charlton, things are beautiful down here, just like in the NBA where time is running out on about a dozen teams that's not going to make the playoffs, and they got to explain why. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses and doctors and first responders, Charlton. They'll be with the Band-Aids there to help take care of all those scars.
Stuck on Band-Aids because Band-Aids stuck on me. It's all fair and level war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars also all around the world. Just say Google or Alexa play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic. He'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really do appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Man, I love Pause and Big C. I just heard a PSA that California is under a drought, and they're asking more people to take fewer showers each week. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, just 2 days ago, we had 24 hours worth of rain back here, so we couldn't explain or understand what a drought is.
Yeah, it's all fair. 11 word, Big C. I tell everybody, no matter what you're going through, you got to take a shower, even if you're having a drought, Big C. But I'll never pause on Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why should everybody care?
Well, Charlton, as we get distracted every day more and more by sports and everything that's going on in society's ways, Charlton, COVID-19 and other things, we forget about our veterans, Charlton. Our veterans have served this country, and they didn't forget about us when they went off and served our country,
Yeah.
the men and the women, Charlton.
Yep.
But unfortunately, they come back home and they don't have the support base that we should provide for them. And over 24 of them, Charlton, a day are committing suicide, a very horrific number
Yeah.
that should not be tolerated in this United States. With all this country has to provide, Charlton, the veterans need to be on the top of the list for what this country provides.
Yep.
And we shouldn't lose over 2,000 a day to suicide. We give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, but we need this country as well as our government to pay more attention to these veterans. They paid attention while they were out serving, Charlton, and now that they come back home, we need to make them a top priority.
Yeah, I love doing our part. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And you can definitely get some help for our veterans and their loved ones. It's all fair in love and war. I also want to say I really appreciate being affiliated with Valley, home of weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants and the Say Hey Kid, as well as the home run king, Barry Bonds. When you reach out to him, just tell him Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country, helping them put people back to work, just like McDonald's does it, car dealerships do it, sports teams do it. Watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. Most of our loans are underwritten by Rocket Mortgage, the #1 lender in the country on the wholesale side. Also opening in the state of Texas later this summer. Also very happy to say thank you, Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight, for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. Big C is all fair level war, man. You know, they talk about the water shortage coming in California. It's already here. I went to the gas station last night. It was about 9 o'clock last night, and I was just getting some gas, and I noticed they had people getting out of their cars to go pump their gas. And maybe it's just a sign of the times. There were these two young ladies that looked like they could be backup singers for one of the Prince bands back in the day, Big C. And these ladies got out of the car. They were very scantily clad, dressed. And so one lady walks up to the teller and says, "Excuse me, I want to get gas on the pump that she was on." Well, her credit card didn't go through. And so she said, "Well, let me try this credit card." Again, she looked like she could have been in the band, Big C. Would you believe there were about 5 men that offered to pay for her gas, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, at least in California, you guys have gas. The
Yeah.
pipeline obstruction that we've had here down in the southeast, Charlton,
Yeah.
we don't have any gas in the state.
Wow, that is something incredible, Big C. Maybe they can start getting us to buy more electric cars, or either dress scantily clad, and you won't need to buy gas. It's all fair in love and war. But, you know, I have this thing going on in California where I just really think they're telling people how you cut back on water. You know, water, in order to live, you got to have water and oxygen, Big C. But they're telling people cut back on water. At the same time, everywhere I look, they have these grass grown between the highways and the cities, as opposed to just having like Las Vegas-style tan bark and desert landscaping. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, we're going to have to get you to run for some politics out there, Charlton, so you can get that situation straightened out.
Yeah, I don't think I'd win, Big C. It's all fair level war. I don't think I'd win at all, but, who knows? You never know that you try. And speaking of winning, I don't want to run to the NBA, something we talk about all the time, Big C. And I'm not saying this happened because we talk about it. We just talked about things and to seem very prescient at times. But the NBA has announced the creation of a new award to honor the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the league's all-time leading scorer and a noted civil rights activist, Big C, and that will recognize a player who best embodies his strive for social justice, racial equality, and the league announced that today, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Charlton, Lou Alcindor, this man has been an activist since he was a young kid.
Yeah.
Back in his high school days at Powell Memorial in New York City, Charlton, he got involved in the civil rights movement of the United States. He's been very prescient. As he thinks about culture and advancement,
Yeah.
he thought as much about that, if not more, than he did about his basketball prowess, Charlton.
Yeah.
He's always been a civic and civil leader. He has always taken the high road, and he's always spoke about the advancement of black people in America.
Yeah.
And how do we gain equality? And I'm glad that the NBA is recognizing a man for his social activism over his dunk.
Yeah, over his dunks, Big C. He's been dunking on social activism for many, many moons. Really appreciate the intelligence and how erudite the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is. Also out of UCLA, Big C, the Pac-8 back in the day when he was doing his thing in the Pac-8 conference. But the winner of the inaugural Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Social Justice Champion Award will be announced during the playoffs and will receive $100,000 from the league, Big C, to donate to an organization of his choosing. And there's 4 additional finalists that will receive $25,000, Big C. Your thoughts?
It's nice that the NBA is stepping forward, Charlton, putting money behind causes of social injustice in America to help advance the youth of America, Charlton, to give them a good start.
Yeah, it really is. I think when I first learned about Kareem, and he was obviously at UCLA, they'd had so many great teams under the late John Wooden, Big C, and he became like a statuesque figure, the great Kareem, part of the big winning streak of 88 games over the years. And then going on to the NBA, of course, learned about him being up in Milwaukee, and then, of course, with Showtime in Southern California at the Forum. But I gotta just say, I think the NBA got a slam dunk on this one, because they don't wait until 10 years after somebody's passed on, Big C. They give them their flowers while they're here, and I'm very proud that they're trying to do something great for the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's nice to give him this award, Charlton, as much as the NBA has turned their back on him over the decades since his retirement, not allowing him into the league as far as from a coaching perspective, Charlton. I think he would have been the most mentorous big man that you could have ever hired as a head coach, and we know how intelligent he is as a man, Charlton. So, yes, this is a gracious award that the NBA is presenting in his namesake, Charlton, but they have not done right by this man throughout the years since he's retired.
Do you think, I'm going to ask, and nobody really knows, but because he's so intelligent, and there was a time when the NBA loved when people would just shut up and dribble, but he was never a guy to shut up and dribble. He's also very well-read, Big C. He's an erudite young man, and oftentimes they didn't want to put that guy in front of the mainstream because he might open people's eyes, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, you look at yourself and how you throw a damage with players as far as dunking and being on a highlight reel. As you talk about the AAU kids are being influenced by that. They're not influenced by the intelligence of somebody like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. When we look at young black athletes, Charlton, for the most part, they're not concerned about the intelligence of athletes and what they do outside the arena. They're more concerned about what they do on the highlight reel, and that's what they get excited about. They're not concerned about how they've been social activists for Black Lives Matter even before now. Kareem was part of that movement back in the 60s. And so for him and being outspoken, this is one of the things that white people have always feared, Charlton, and white people have always run the NBA. So the guys who went out there and wanted to be on the highlight reel and did not say things, yes, everybody wanted to embrace him. But when you look at Kareem, who always was in the forefront about the wrongdoings of black people in America, Charlton, that's what everybody did not appreciate.
You know, I think you got to spend more time around a lot of young kids because a lot of kids are very salient, Big C. At the same time, and not knocking anybody because I don't want to do that on this platform, but we know of some basketball players that are very well famous, even have shoes named after them, and they were very quiet up till the past couple of years on things that Kareem talked about for 40 years, Big C. So I really do appreciate the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar getting some acknowledgement about being intelligent and how he's going to do whatever he can to give back as well as he can, Big C. Also, in the great NBA, the great Kyle Kuzma, who also went to UCLA, driving layup with 6.9 seconds remaining. It gave the shorthanded Lakers, the defending world champion Los Angeles Lakers, that also the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played for. It was a 124-122 victory over the Houston Rockets on Wednesday night. And it seems like the LA Lakers are starting to play with the guys they found at the LA City playgrounds. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, they had a nail-biting game against the least dominant team in the Western Division, Charlton, so I guess they got away with the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, they got away with the skin of their teeth, but I think that puts the rest of the NBA on notice. There's a time when people want to try to trade up for the first-round draft pick coming out of college, like they want to get that big-name trade guy, but the Lakers are doing something that hardly anybody thought they could do, and that's win without household names, and they'll get ready to turn it on when the playoffs show up. It's all fair and level work, kind of like Showtime Part 2, if that makes sense to you, Big C. Also in the NBA, the Portland Trail Blazers, they took another big step towards securing that top 6 seed, Big C, in the upcoming NBA playoffs. The great Dollar Dame Damian Lillard, also out of California, dropped 30 points. C.J. McCollum added 26 to lead the Trail Blazers to a 105-98 victory over the Utah Jazz on Wednesday night. But then Utah also missing, they're missing their star guard too, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Utah is in the playoffs, Charlton, and they're not pressing the issue right now. What they're trying to do is make sure that they stay healthy for that playoff run.
Yeah.
Portland, this is the status quo for Portland. If you look at Portland over the last 3 years in the NBA, they put on a torrid rush at the end of the season
they always
to
do.
make the playoffs and get a seeding, Charlton. But they seem to be burned out once they get there.
Yeah, they seem to get burned out once they get there, and I saw them get swept last time they were in the Western Conference Finals by the Golden State Warriors. It's all fair and level work, but I think about the great Carmelo Anthony, Big C. He dropped 18 points for Portland. Yusuf Nurkic, Big C, chipped in 11 points and 15 rebounds. When you think about Portland, the Trail Blazers, they won their 5th straight game. Of course, no Donovan Mitchell, Big C, for Utah, but they earned their 9th victory. In the last 10 games, very quietly so, Big C, Portland's moved into a tie with Dallas for the 5th position in the Western Conference, and nobody's noticed, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, they don't want to be playing Dallas in the playoffs. Dallas right now is playing tremendous basketball, Charlton. Portland, like I said, they get in, but they put so much they spend so much energy in the last part of the season that once they get to the playoffs, they just don't seem to have any legs left.
Yeah, they don't seem to have any legs, or no favorites with the officiating. Sometimes who wants to see the Portland market in the NBA finals? Just an opinion from some people up in Portland that I know. It's all fair level war. The great Luka Doncic, Big C. You just talked about Dallas and what they're doing. There's a new sheriff in town, and it's not J.R. Ewing, played by the late great Larry Hagman, Big C, but the great Luka Doncic. He's the new sheriff in Dallas. The Mavericks are a big step closer to avoiding the play-in tournament in the Western Conference, and the young Dallas sensation dropped 33 points. The great Luka Doncic, Big C, was a perfect 5 for 5 from 3. And the second quarter, also 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and 7 threes as the Mavs eliminated the Pelicans from playoff contention. In the words of the great J.R. Ewing, that's right, Big C. Your thoughts?
So much for television's most televised team, the New Orleans Pelicans, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're going to be sitting at home once again watching the playoffs. Zion gets a lot of notoriety.
Yeah.
The team just can't pull its weight.
Yeah, I remember watching the great J.R. Ewing. One of my favorite TV shows back in the day was Dallas. And you could never leave J.R. Ewing alone with a woman, Big C, because he always found a way to get her back to his place, even if he already has somebody there. If that makes sense to you. It's all fair and level war. The great J.R. Ewing. Kristaps Porzingis, Big C, he dropped 19 in his return from the injury, and the Mavericks kept one of the inside tracks to a top 6 spot in the West, a 125-107 victory over the Pelicans on Wednesday night. And of course, the league wants to get the Pelicans into the playoffs. But I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, the best way to get the Pelicans into the playoffs is to move them up to the great Pacific Northwest and have them play in the city of Seattle. Maybe some people don't appreciate that, but I think they would have a much better showing the support system. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's not the support system, Charlton. I mean, they got a packed house all the time in New Orleans. It's about the talent. They just don't have equal talent to the rest of the division, Charlton. They're going to need to mature a little more. They're going to have to get a little more court command out there to be competitive in the NBA.
Yeah, you think, I mean, they had, Ball was doing his thing, Big C. When you think about how good he is, and then Zion Williamson hurt his finger, of course, maybe dunking too many times as opposed to just getting a layup. But they're a good young team. I still think they do a lot better up in Seattle, other than being in New Orleans. It's all fair and level war, Big C. After watching the playoffs the last 2 years, the great Trae Young, he can't wait to see what it's like to suit up in the postseason, Big C. Young dropped 33 points, and John Collins hit a go-ahead three-pointer with 24.4 seconds remaining Wednesday night. They rallied the Atlanta Hawks to a 120-116 victory over the Washington Wizards, Big C. They clinched the Hawks' first playoff berth since 2017, and this is a team that's they're right ready to make a run in the East because Boston's fallen down, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is a young team that has developed, Charlton, over the past couple of years. They put some integral pieces together. When you think about John Collins and how good he has been, he chose not to sign a max contract this past year with the Atlanta Hawks, and so he's going to be out on the free agent market making a lot of money. Trae Young has really developed in his second year in the NBA, Charlton. He was traded on draft night for Luka Doncic from Dallas, Charlton, and now both of these players are going to be in the playoffs. But the key addition to Atlanta has been Quinn Capella, who has made a significant challenger in the middle, Charlton. He's taking up the paint. He's become that rim protector for the Hawks.
You know, it's amazing when you look at Capella, how dominant he is. You also look at the fact that Chris Paul's doing his thing for the Phoenix Suns. The great James Harden is doing his thing for the Brooklyn Nets, Big C. There was a time they were all running around down there in Texas, and I guess Houston didn't like teams with winning players. It's all fair and level war. I do want to touch on, in the NBA, there's a 5-time NBA champion, and his name is the great Dennis Rodman, Big C. One of the greatest and craziest rebounders and defenders ever. The Worm, 30-plus rebounds 5 times, 25-plus rebounds 33 times, Big C, and 20-plus rebounds 167 times. And he wasn't the biggest guy on the court, but he was always willing to challenge anybody, whether it was Karl Malone or any of those bad boys, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about when Dennis Rodman came into the NBA as a second-round draft pick, Charlton, out of a Division II school, you know, John Daly took a chance on him with the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah.
And it paid off. You know, he became the heart and soul of the bad boys. When you think about they had an all-star roster, Dennis Rodman was the spark of that organization, Charlton, and led them to a couple of NBA titles.
Yep.
Moved on to the Chicago Bulls. Everybody noted about Michael Jordan. But without Dennis Rodman, Charlton, there wasn't going to be a three-peat on that second run. Dennis Rodman was the key to the defense. He could guard anybody.
Yeah.
He was the best defender in the NBA. So, you know, he's underrated on many annals, Charlton, because they talk about scoring all the time.
Yeah.
But you just spoke about how he dominated the game defensively and cleaned off the boards like Windex.
Yeah, he cleaned it off like Windex, Big C, and oftentimes the way he partied, he needed to have some Windex with him, from what I understand. Who in today's game reminds you of the great Dennis Rodman, Big C? I would say Draymond Green for the Golden State Warriors. You know, they both have this championship pedigree, Big C, but is there anyone that reminds you offensively and defensively of the great D-Rod? Obviously a better defensive player, defensive stopper, not as much offensively, but who in your opinion reminds you of the great D-Rod, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, the game was much more different back in that era, Charlton. It was very physical, and Rodman, you know, could play against Shaq. He could play against Kobe. He could play against anybody you put out on the floor. But as you mentioned, Draymond Green is probably the closest to resemble Dennis Rodman in this day's game.
Yeah, I really liked the way Dennis Rodman played. Oftentimes he had his own, he dribbled to his own beat, Big C, to his own drum. It's all fair and level war. Tonight's NBA basketball schedule on Thursday, May 13th, Big C. LA Clippers are at Charlotte. Milwaukee is at Indiana. Orlando is at Atlanta. Does Atlanta maybe celebrate too much from what happened last night with the Wizards, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, no, Charlton. I mean, this is a team. They're in the playoffs. They're excited about that. They just want to stay healthy and get ready to roll.
They want to get ready to roll. Philadelphia, the 76ers, they're on the road down in South Beach, Big C, playing the Miami Heat. And the Philadelphia 76ers, they're a team that at least is going to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, Big C. They got to go down and play in South Florida. Sometime when you go down and run around on the beach in Florida, Big C, you get tired legs. Does Bam Adebayo have any chance of trying to contain the big man, Joel Embiid? Many people feel whether he gets it or not, the NBA MVP. Big C, your thoughts on that matchup?
Well, Charlton, I mean, it's not about that matchup. It's about the guards, Charlton, and that's how, Miami runs, is through their guards. Joel Embiid is going to get his points when he's on the floor. Bam Adebayo will do a decent job against him.
Yeah.
But the problem with the Sixers is how well Simmons and Embiid play together.
Yeah.
They have not been in sync for the entire season.
Yeah, it's all fair and level war. I really can't wait to look forward to see what happens in that matchup. Seeing the great Doc Rivers taking his thing down to South Beach. Pat Riley has that team rolling, also the GM Big C. The San Antonio Spurs at the New York Knicks. Toronto's at Chicago. Sacramento's at Memphis. Denver is at Minnesota. And then Portland's at Phoenix. Portland, again, they won, I think, 9 of the last 10. Phoenix stumbled over in the Bay Area against Golden State, Big C. Does Portland and Dollar Dame go down into the desert of the sun, Big C, into the valley of the sun, and come out with a win, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, right now, Phoenix is not as good as you were touting them to be a week ago, Charlton. I mean, they've been getting their butt kicked and their feathers plucked, pretty good the past couple of games. So, they got to hope that they can keep at least one tail feather in when they get up down the floor.
They got to hope that they can keep a tail feather in. It's all for, they call them Portland Trailblazers for a reason. Just don't get too close to the sun. It's all fair and level war. And one more game I want to bring up to you when you think about these great games in these playoff games, and they're going right down to the wire, whether you have the defending NBA champion Los Angeles Lakers not having players that they're going to need in the playoffs to even play in games, let alone not starting, Big C. Just guys are not even playing. And then you have this thing with the New York Knicks. They're going up against Coach Pop, Big C. San Antonio is in the Big Apple. The Los Angeles Lakers, when New York came to Los Angeles, and you know how sometimes people in New York are just rude, and they've been trying to dirty up the parking lot and dirty up the bathrooms, and they made them clean up after themselves, Big C. So they sent New York back home to that Big Apple, and they had a bite taken out of that apple coming out to Los Angeles. Are they primed to get bitten again by those snakes out of the San Antonio Spurs, Big C? Your thoughts?
No, the Knicks are playoff ready, Charlton. This is a team that they got a lot ahead of them, Charlton, being in the playoffs. They're going to be a huge challenge in the East. They're not going to go away easy regardless of who they're playing.
Yeah, it's all fair and level war. I really can't wait to see what happens as we get down. Just a couple of games left before we get into the NBA playoffs. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about what's going on in the world of basketball and also some football. In the words of the great Arnold Schwarzenegger, we'll be back. All right, you can follow Big C Sports on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps you can follow Big C Sports, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. I wanna take the bat and I wanna turn it over to the baseball diamond, Big C. College baseball, Nevada, University of Nevada. In Reno, Big C, Tyler Bassetti has homered in 9 consecutive games, breaking an NCAA Division I record that stood for 30 years, Big C. He homered to right center field in his first at-bat Tuesday against Arizona State, the Sun Devils, Big C. It was the 11th homer in 10 games for the senior third baseman, who was at a loss to explain the feat, Big C. In his words, he said it's a great accomplishment, but something he never thought he would do. When you think about Georgia Tech's Andy Bruce, he homered in 8 straight games. That was back in 1991, and Duke's Ryan Jackson matched their feat 3 years later. Bosetti is a native of Vacaville, California, Big C, and began the streak the second game of a doubleheader at Air Force on April 24th. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, well, what an exciting feat, Charlton, that homer in 8 consecutive games at any level of baseball.
Yeah.
You know, and when you think about Bosetti, he only stands 5'8". He reminds a lot of people of Altuve of the Houston Astros, Charlton, but this young man has a lot of jack in his bat, and you know, when you hit that many home runs in consecutive games, Charlton, you're eating right. But I guess, you know, I think Reno is up there probably 4,000 or 5,000 feet up in altitude, like in Colorado with the Rockies, Charlton. So that ball has a great opportunity to carry.
It has a great opportunity to carry. The biggest little city in the world, Reno, Nevada, is all fair and love and war, Big C. Also, in college athletics, Aaron Matson scored the sudden victory goal in the 7th minute in overtime to lift North Carolina to his 3rd consecutive title with a 4-3 win over Michigan in NCAA field hockey in a game that came on Sunday night. And thank goodness they had ice, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, field hockey, Charlton, a very challenging game. When you talk about athletics with eye and hand coordination, we all think about baseball players putting the bat on the ball. But playing field hockey, Charlton, you got to be able to get that little club on the ball. It's like a mix between baseball and hockey all at once, Charlton. But what an exciting feat for those seniors, Charlton, to win 3 consecutive national championships.
Yeah, it's amazing how they're doing that thing on ice, Big C. North Carolina's second penalty corner in a row. Matson took it to her side, reverse side, and smashed it through the legs of Wolverines goalkeeper Anna Speaker, Big C. It was Matson's 3rd goal of the match and her 30th of the season for the top-seeded Tar Heels. 19-1 on the season. North Carolina won its 3rd consecutive championship for the 2nd time in program history, 1995-97, and tied Old Dominion, Big C, for an NCAA best 9th title. The last time North Carolina team won a national championship on campus was when the women's soccer team, led by Mia Hamm, beat the great George Mason 6-0. That was November of 1993, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, maybe the football team needs to stand out there with the field hockey team, Charlton, on that grass out there and learn how to play a little better. Maybe they'll win an ACC championship.
Sometimes you can learn a lot just watching how people do things on ice, and everybody loves it when the college kids get a chance to win, and it's all fair and love and war. Not everybody pays as much attention to the college girls. I want to take just a small moment because Major League Baseball, you know, I love the game of Major League Baseball, and everybody likes to say, the pitch, hit deep, right field, back to the wall, home run. It's all fair and love and war, Big C. When you think about Major League Baseball, Mike Trout, his greatest season yet, and how Big C saw this coming before anybody else, I tell you, it's probably that moonshine makes it clairvoyant, Big C. But Trout began the week leading the majors in OPS, Big C. Wade runs and created plus for the Fangraphs win above replacement while in the midst of the greatest start of his illustrious career. By that point, Trout had played 30 games, batting .376 average, or .488 on-base percentage, Big C, .713 sluggers percentage, and all stood his career highs for his first 30 games of the season, Big C. Your thoughts?
I mean, Mike Trout is tremendous. I know you have a thing against him, Charlton, but this man, his numbers speak for themselves. I mean, here it is. We were talking about Shohei Ohtani, how good a season he's having. But Mike Trout is the straw that stirs the drink out there in Anaheim. They need to put some players around him and a better pitching staff. But when you look at his numbers, I mean, he's doing it all, you know, as far as helping the Angels out. And if they can get some other players on the roster that played like him, Charlton, you think about an on-base percentage of .488. So half the time he walks up to the mound, that means he is ended up at least first base. He's third in the American League in home runs. So, I mean, he's doing it all for the Angels. Yeah, he's doing as best he can. And maybe he's not even getting a good night's sleep having that his newborn kid rolling around, waking him up in the middle of the night. It's all fair in love and war, Big C. Also, going down to the South, Big C, where the birds fly low, the Atlanta Braves outfielder. Think about this good old boy, Big C. Major League Baseball's home run leader, the great Ronald Acuna Jr., has 50 home runs, Big C. He has 42 stolen bases over his last 162 games. And you think about what's been dealing with COVID and all that jazz.
scoring 156 runs during that span. I know they say sometimes he hot dogs at Big C, maybe a new version of Deion Sanders back in the day. But this kid, I think he's just going to get better and better and better, and the sky really is the limit for him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, on the baseball diamond, Charlton, Deion Sanders couldn't hold Raul Acuña's drop strap, and even though they play with the same organization. But when you talk about those phenomenal numbers of 50-40, man, basically over a regular season in Major League Baseball, he's outstanding. I know he just signed an extension contract with the Atlanta Braves this past offseason, Charlton. If he can stay healthy, you know, we're going to be witnessing one of the greatest players in baseball in the 20th century in Raul Acuña Jr.
Yeah, he reminds me so much, too, like Mookie Betts. When he comes to the plate, you want to watch it. You want to see Tatis come to the plate, you want to watch it. It's all fair and level war. But Deion Sanders did play in an NFL playoff game and in a World Series. I don't think Acuña Jr. is going to do that, but it's all fair and level war, Big C. Tonight, Thursday, May 13th, Major League Baseball schedule. You have the Toronto Blue Jays at the Atlanta Braves, Big C, and you have Philadelphia at Washington, Kansas City at Detroit, Big C, St. Louis at Milwaukee, Minnesota Twins at the Chicago White Sox, San Francisco, the Giants at Pittsburgh, the Pirates, Big C, the A's are at Boston, the New York Yankees are down south in Tampa. What a great city to live in, Tampa. Why do they still play it in a dome, though, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, you get a lot of rain down there, so you're going to get a lot of rain delays if you did not have a dome in Tampa.
Yeah, the weather can't be worse in Tampa than it is in New York, Big C. It's all fair level war. You have the Texans at Houston. It's an all-Texas battle, Big C. And Cincinnati's at Colorado Rockies. Miami Marlins at the Arizona Diamondbacks. And Cleveland is at Seattle. Is that a big thing that Texas, a National League team, is playing an American League team in the Texas Rangers and the Houston Astros? If anybody cheats, that's the only series where nobody's going to complain, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, everything is done bigger in Texas, so
Yeah.
if you're going to cheat, do it big and bold.
Do it big and bold. Hey, that's J.R. Ewing territory. You know you can't introduce your wife to J.R. Ewing because she's probably going to leave home with him. Like they say, never leave home without it. Your American Express card. Never leave your wife with J.R. Ewing. It's all fair. Air level war. I used to love watching that TV series. But I also want to take you to the world of the NFL. And I know everybody's hyped about what's going on in NFL football. We haven't even had kickoff, Big C, and everybody's right now talking about what team is going to have a better game against what matchup as the NFL schedule was released yesterday. But it does show you how important the United States Football League is important to I would say most sports fans in the country, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, when you think about the NFL, Charlton, all professional sports take a backseat to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the most dynamic, exciting game that's being played. I mean, every week means something. You look at baseball, you look at the NBA, you look at the NHL. You're talking about 100-plus games being played in those sports, Charlton.
Yeah.
But when you look at the NFL, and the season has been expanded to 17 games this year, every week means something. You can't go on a 5-game losing streak in the NFL and make the playoffs, but yet you can do that in all those other sports.
Yeah.
This is a game that every play and every game means something.
Yeah, it does mean something. It's a big deal, especially down in Texas, where Jerry Jones is the new J.R. Ewing, at least businessman. I don't know what he's like in his private life, Big C, but he probably could be too far off from J.R. Ewing. It's all fair level war. NFL ranking the NFL's top quarterback matchup in 2021, Big C. I think even Green Bay has 5 games scheduled for TV prime time this year, so that tells you about where touchdown Aaron Rodgers may end up from the people who know. When you think about it, though, in the NFL, everything's an event. We saw how great the NFL put on the 2021 NFL draft in Cleveland, Big C. And I want to get your opinion about how well that draft ranks compared to maybe some of the draft classes that we've seen over the last maybe decade. I didn't think it was going to be a great showing in Cleveland with all the rain, but I was surprised, even though it was not as maybe eventful as the one down in Memphis. Big C, your thoughts?
I mean, when you look at what the NFL does, Charlton, it's always spectacular. Every year they go to a different level as far as the fan experience, Charlton, at the draft. putting on a great show, bringing in the players that are going to show well for the NFL as far as being drafted and walking across that stage, Charlton. They make sure that they don't embarrass the young men that are going to be a part of the fraternity.
Yeah, it's all fair and love and war. I will note the quarterback that got the most publicity on draft day, it wasn't Trevor Lawrence. It wasn't Justin Fields, Big C. It wasn't some of the other guys, Trey Lance. It wasn't those guys that got picked. It was touchdown Aaron Rodgers, and they're going to be having 5 primetime games this year on NFL. A lot like what Patrick Ewing did before the Knicks decided to get back into the playoffs, saying he couldn't get into Madison Square Garden. But in the NFL, everything is an event. Even the release of the schedule draws more viewers than an actual game in most other sports, Big C. And why is the NFL king? And on Wednesday evening, the king set forth a proclamation for who's going to play when in 2021, Big C, beginning with the Dallas Cowboys and J.R. Ewing's finest statement, the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones as J.R. Ewing, in my opinion. They travel to face the Super Bowl champion, defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers with touchdown Tom Brady and touchdown Dak Prescott. It's going to be Thursday night, September the 9th, culminating on January 9th, Big C, in 2022. But the NFL is about to enter into uncharted territory with its first ever 17-game slate. Big C, do you like that? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, no player likes to play an extra game when it's going to be wear and tear on the body. I mean, this bye season that we have, Charlton, where you would normally have the 2 byes throughout the season, now you're going to be reduced down to 1. And, most veterans didn't play a lot during the preseason.
That's right.
The preseason is going to be reduced down, and so it's going to be a lot of wear and tear, and hopefully it won't increase on the injury behalf of the players.
Yeah, some teams don't have a bye until like week 13. You would think they would all have a bye right around week 8, 9, and 10, Big C, but some are not going to get it until week 13 or 14, Big C. So we've known the matchup for 2021 slate for some time now, but now we also know which big matchups we'll see early in the season and which ones will come in December and January right around the holiday season. I want to single out one of the biggest quarterback matchups of the season. It's not easy. Everybody has their own opinion, but that won't stop us from trying, Big C. I want to get your thoughts. I'm going to bring out top 5 quarterback duels in 2021 with preference given to the games that figure to have major impact and major postseason implications. And not everybody believes in what I'm going to bring up, but everybody has their own opinion, Big C. Number 5 is touchdown Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield versus number 1 touchdown Patrick Mahomes, a 2-time Super Bowl attendant, won 1 and lost 1, Big C. But when you think about that, give me your feeling for the second time in the last 3 years, the Cleveland Browns will head into the summer as one of the NFL's darling, at least being hyped, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, they delivered last year, Charlton. When you think about the maturity and the development of that roster in Cleveland under Kevin Stefanski, they did a wonderful job making it to the playoffs, Charlton, only to be knocked out by the Chiefs, in that round. But when you think about Baker Mayfield, if he stays within his mentality, Charlton, and he stay that game manager with those 2 outstanding running backs in Chubbs and Hunt, this team can go far. They upgraded the receiving core, Charlton. And on Kansas City, the flip side, you know what Mr. Mahomes can do. He's magic. They got him a brand new offensive line, Charlton, so he's going to go out and take that car out for a test ride. And that receiving core is still like a track team. Yeah,
they're like a track team. You recall back in college when these 2 guys lit it up, I think they both combined for nearly 1,000 yards passing when Baker Mayfield was at Oklahoma and touchdown Patrick Mahomes was at Texas Tech. It's amazing that Patrick Mahomes, as great as he was in college at Texas Tech, where you knew they threw the ball, Big C, it's amazing he wasn't the number 1 pick by everybody's team. I think he got less favor than Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence is not as good a quarterback as Patrick Mahomes. But it's all fair and level war. Could you imagine if we saw another 1,000-yard performance for these teams in the NFL, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, actually, Charlton, in college, when they matched up, they were just shy of 1,200 yards passing. I mean, it was an outstanding shootout. One of the best college games that you ever want to see. But you got to understand, when Patrick Mahomes was in college, he wasn't a winner. The most games he ever won in one season at Texas Tech was 12. So he was overlooked like many quarterbacks in college, Charlton, when you don't make the championship round in your conference.
Yeah, sometimes you got to find the diamond in the rough, and not always a team that win are the best. It's all fair and level war, Big C. There's another great matchup, and again, everybody has their own opinion. You have touchdown Matthew Stafford. He decided to fly out of Detroit and land at LAX in Southern California, Big C, and then you have touchdown Lamar Jackson and known as Superman. That's going to take place in Week 17, and Jackson's always knocking on that MVP boat and that playoff ballot, Big C, but Matthew Stafford has not had nearly the same success in Detroit, but being in the media market of LA, you're going to think he's already won a couple of playoff games, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he's one of the few quarterbacks in the NFL that has thrown for over 5,000 yards in a regular season. Yet, when you think about Jackson, he does have that MVP under his belt, Charlton, but he's never been more successful in the playoffs than Matthew Stafford. Even though their careers have different lengths, they both have been failures when it comes to the playoffs.
Well, I would at least say that Lamar Jackson has been more of a threat and getting the Baltimore Ravens to more recognition and more success in the NFL, even as a Super Bowl favorite at times, but they've been knocked off. I mean, it's hard to win when you're in the playoffs, but he's had a lot more success than Matthew Stafford, even being MVP. Stafford's never been an MVP, Big C, but in a late season contest that could have major playoff implications, they pitted MVP quarterback and touchdown Superman Lamar Jackson against a player whom the Rams, they mortgaged their future, got rid of a Super Bowl quarterback in Jared Goff, sent him to Detroit, and they got a veteran signal caller in Matthew Stafford, and there's no more excuses for Matthew Stafford, Big C. He's going to have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and now with the limelight of Los Angeles, he either has to shine or go back to Detroit, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you got two quarterbacks with no more excuses, Charlton. Lamar Jackson's in the same boat that Matthew Stafford's in. I mean, you were an MVP one year, but you've been knocked out of the playoff in the first round in both years, Charlton. Matthew Stafford has been in a lackluster program out there in Detroit. Now he comes to Los Angeles with all the weapons around him. He has a playoff-ready team, Charlton. He has to deliver.
He has to deliver. But I want to ask you this question because I know people were asking this of Aaron Rodgers way before we have that playoff game on 3rd and 8 or 3rd and goal from the 8-yard line and decided not to run the ball, thinking they had another down to get in. At the same time, I saw in games where Peyton Manning, when he played for the Indianapolis Colts, and the field goal team was coming on, he told them, no, get back off, get on the sideline, I got this. I saw Tom Brady do the same thing in the Super Bowl against Kansas City. They were going to kick a field goal. Tom Brady said, no, get off the field, I got this. Do you think that Matthew Stafford or Lamar Jackson have that kind of confidence in their ability to predict what the defense is doing, to even have that kind of swagger, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we haven't seen it from either one of them in their career. So, I mean, I saw Brady do that twice. He did it in the NFC Championship game against Green Bay, turned around and did it in the Super Bowl also.
Yeah.
So that comes with confidence and belief in the players that are around you, not just you as an individual.
Why didn't touchdown Aaron Rodgers? Now think about this, Big C. He was the NFL's MVP. Touchdown Aaron Rodgers had the same ability to do what Peyton Manning did back in the day, the same ability to do what Tom Brady did in the game at Green Bay and also in the Super Bowl, Big C. What is it about Aaron Rodgers that when everyone was saying in the last 2 minutes of the game, you want Aaron Rodgers with the ball in his hands? What was it about him that was an MVP that did not have the moxie that Brady or Manning did back in the day, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it comes down to the coach. It's not just the player. It comes to the coach having the belief in you and giving you the opportunity to execute that call.
Yeah, well, I think they still should have pushed him off the way Manning did and also Brady did. But it's all fair and level word, Big C. Everybody has their own opinion. But when you look at the late season contest, could have major playoff implications. MVP Jackson against the player that the Rams mortgaged their future for. I can't wait to see that game. It's all fair and level war. I want to take you to the number 3 matchup, Big C. And people were saying, just like Rodgers, oh, this guy wants out of Seattle. He's tired of winning games. He's tired of being coached by the great Pete Carroll. He's tired of all that fresh seafood that they have up there in Puget Sound, Big C. But touchdown Russell Houdini Wilson. And then Kyler Murray. In Week 18, Murray's coming out of Arizona. Maybe people say he's like Russell Houdini Wilson. Maybe a little bit faster, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he's much faster than Wilson, Charlton. He's grown up a lot in his first 2 seasons in the NFL, Charlton. I think he has to learn how to not take as many hits. They upgraded the offensive line in Arizona and the receiving corps, Charlton. So this should be a breakout season for Kyler Murray.
Yeah, it should be. They've been saying that it's a breakout season for everybody, but sometimes Russell Houdini Wilson lets people know not so fast, my friend. Expectations are high in the Valley of the Sun, especially seeing what Chris Paul has done down in Arizona, Big C, in the NBA. So the pressure's on the young quarterback, Kyler Murray. Expectations are always going to be high in the Pacific Northwest. The thing is, in my opinion, if touchdown Houdini Wilson were to lose this matchup, they're going to play twice. He still has the leverage because he's a two-time Super Bowl player. Should be 2-0 in Super Bowls, but if he got the handoff in one game to beast mode. And then Murray still has he has a higher mountain to climb, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, no, I mean, he's gotten to that mountain. He beat Russell Wilson last year head-to-head, Charlton. So, I mean, he's not enamored by Russell Wilson. These guys go out there and play to win and compete. It's about the supporting cast that you have, and Arizona last year was able to take it to Seattle.
Yeah, they were able to do that, basically. That's when DK Metcalf ran somebody down from about 80 yards. It's all fair and level war. I still like Russell Houdini Wilson in that matchup this year, Big C. Touchdown, Aaron Rodgers. We talk about him so many times. And when people blame Matt LaFleur for kicking the field goal, remember, touchdown Aaron Rodgers was the MVP. He had every right to do what Tom Brady did in his own backyard and to do what Peyton Manning did back in the day. He could have said, no, I got this, go back to the sideline, and I think they would have listened, Big C. He's playing against touchdown Patrick Mahomes. That's a Week 9 matchup. We know they make a lot of commercials together, Big C, but they don't seem to like each other on the field as much as in the commercials, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we saw these two teams combatants last year, Charlton, and Kansas City got the best of Green Bay. I think this is all about Kansas City in this game. Patrick Mahomes going to be playing with a chip on his shoulders this year, Charlton, after last year, that tough, bitter loss in the Super Bowl. I think this is going to be a quarterback on a mission. Aaron Rodgers, if he is in Green Bay, as I think that he will be, he's going to be a competitor all throughout the season, Charlton. Yeah. He is the reason why the Packers are a competitor.
Yeah, he is there as long as they've had a good defense, a good offense. You don't become MVP by yourself. You have a good line blocker for you and a great receiver in Devontae Adams, Big C out of Fresno State doing his thing. But one of the probably ranked higher on this list, if it were not for the uncertainty surrounding touchdown Aaron Rodgers, he'll be in Green Bay from come kickoff day, Big C. The Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs are both easily front runners in their respective divisions. Both teams are led by MVP quarterbacks, Big C, and have advanced to at least as far as the conference championship game in each of the past 2 seasons. And just like Captain America, Big C, it should mean something, Big C. Your thoughts?
Oh, it will mean something, Charlton. This is a game that's going to be much television.
Yeah.
You got two dynamic quarterbacks. Both are mobile. Both are excellent. They both have dynamic receiving cores, Charlton. And you don't want to go on a bathroom break while it's not in the timeout.
Especially when you have when it's about 10 degrees. 10 degrees at Lambeau Field. I know they have heated restrooms, but sometimes you don't have enough time to stand in line for the heated restroom. You got to do it outside where the drop might freeze before it hits the ground. If that makes sense to you, it's all fair and level word, Big C. Looking forward to that matchup. Also, when you think about it, that's Week 9. But this is one of probably the higher ranked on the list, Big C, if it's not for the uncertainty surrounding Aaron Rodgers. If you got the same situations, Big C, and let's say they're down and they need a touchdown, a field goal's not going to help them, and you got 3rd and goal from the 8-yard line, and you got touchdown Patrick Mahomes on the sideline, if LaFleur said, let's kick the field goal, does Aaron Rodgers learn from his mistake and say, no, I got this, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, no, Charlton, I think it's more about the coach than it is about Aaron Rodgers. In a situation where you have Patrick Mahomes on the sideline, you don't leave points on the field with him.
Yeah.
You go for it because the field goal is not going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs because all he needs is 25 to 30 seconds to move his team in the field goal range.
Yeah. On the other hand, if you touch down Patrick Mahomes, we know how he was rushed around in Super Bowl 55 without an offensive line. If Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid, they got the same situation, it's 3rd and goal from the 8-yard line. I know touchdown Patrick Mahomes would have probably run it in, Big C. But if they're saying send them the field goal, do they say, no, Eric Bieniemy, no, Andy Reid, I got this, would he have the moxie to do that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, every game is different, Charlton, when it comes down to it. You have to look at your opponent, see how effective they've been moving the ball offensively and how well your defense has been playing. But there's not been a situation in Kansas City where there's 3rd down inside the 10-yard line and they refuse to go for it. They do it on fourth down.
On fourth down, yeah. They always do. That's a lesson learned. We all learn from our mistakes. And then number one, and a lot of people like this, Big C, Josh Allen for Buffalo versus Tom Brady for Tampa Bay in Week 14. You have Allen and the Bills. They come in Week 14 with a potential Super Bowl preview in Tampa against Tampa Bay's Tom Brady, Big C, the Buccaneers. At this late juncture of the season, playoff chances will be in full swing. Every game will be that much more important. Allen will be tasked with showing that he and the Bills, that Bills Mafia, that they're capable of winning it and trying to win it all against the quarterback that has done so 7 times, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is more about Josh Allen and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, Charlton. This defense is relentless. You have to understand, playing in Buffalo at that late juncture of the season will the cold affect that Tampa defense. But Tom Brady's accustomed to playing in the cold after spending 19 years in New England, so he'll be right at home.
Yeah, it's going to be right at home. I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot of good football to be played, especially Baltimore kicking off down in Las Vegas, Big C, with the Las Vegas Raiders. But I tell you, in my opinion, there's a lot of games I want to see. But the game that I really want to see is in the fourth game of the year when Tom Brady goes back to the place where he made his championship, 6 championships, Big C, and 9 Super Bowl appearances with the New England Patriots. He's going to go back home to where everybody loved Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay, but Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. It all started with the tuck rule against Oakland, where Tom Brady knew the ball was knocked out of his hand. He even walked off the side of the field with his head tucked down, Big C. And them good old boys in Boston, as they always do, they got together and said, not so fast, my friends. We probably going to lose this game to the Raiders if we don't have some shenanigans. So shenanigans showed up in Boston, Big C. They sent Brady back onto the field, and Vinatieri kicked the field goal that tied the game, and they went in and won the thing in overtime, Big C. You're going to have a similar homecoming, and you're either going to have, in my opinion, Tom Brady going in and being booed at Gillette Stadium or being given a standing ovation at Gillette Stadium. But there's a new sheriff in town. His name is Cam Newton, and I do believe that Cam Newton will put on a show as well as people don't expect him to. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Tom Brady will be cheered when he arrives at Foxborough, Charlton. I mean, for what he did for that organization for so long, no one's going to be upset that he left. It was just time to move on. I'm not so sure that Cam Newton will be the starter at that time of the season, Charlton, because if New England hasn't won at least 3 games at that point, he may be replaced by the young kid, Mac Jones, who is more of an efficient thrower. And that's what it's about in the NFL. Can you get the ball to the receivers? And that's something that Cam Newton has not been able to do the last 2 seasons that he played with Panthers and with New England. So this is going to be about a game, Charlton. If he's healthy, he'll be playing. And if he's playing well, Charlton, he'll still be in the lineup. But if he's struggling, they won't hesitate this year in pulling the trigger on taking Cam Newton out of the lineup in New England.
Yeah, I still think people got to give Cam the credit and realize that almost every year he's played in the league, he's thrown for nearly 4,000 yards. Outside of having the surgery and outside of catching COVID, he's been a very effective player. But it's up to Cam. He has a chance to come back and prove it on the field. Oftentimes people can doubt you until you do it on the field. I'm looking forward to the season. I know it's another game. And we see it NBA, people can have that player, that load management, Big C. And whether that's going to happen in the NFL too, I'm sure teams are going to have to, because you have fewer preseason games. So that means you can't rest those 4 preseason games. You got to get in and start playing. And you still only have that 1 bye week for most teams late in the season, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, the NFL is what it is. It's a grind every year, regardless of when you're playing and who you're playing. It's a grind. It's mano a mano, Charlton, and you can't take time off like you can in the NBA.
Yeah, that's very well said. And we'll see. It's either going to be something that people buy into or they won't buy into. But there was a time when we had 14 games and went to 16 games. Now we're at 17 games. And nobody seems to complain when they get a chance to play in this great league.
There was a time that the league had 12 games. You went from 12 to 14 to 16. Now 17. The NFL has changed over the decades, Charlton. It is adjusted to the athletes. The athletes have gotten better conditions. They take care of their body. When I started playing ball, Charlton, players smoked in the locker room.
Yeah.
Before, and the game, halftime, and after the game. They couldn't wait to get in and have a cigarette. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, they don't do that anymore, and that's because they probably are more health conscious and they choose to live longer as opposed to going out there and lighting up their cigarette the way they used to do on airplanes back in the day. And I'm glad that sometimes people catch up to what's going on with their health and not paying attention to having to light one up. It's all fair and level. Where I want to take the time to touch on some African American history, Big C. A man by the name of Thomas Paine published an anti-slavery tract in 1775. Although Paine was not the first to advocate for the abolition of slavery in America, Big C, he was certainly one of the earliest and most influential. The essay African and Slavery in America was written in 1774 and published March 8, 1775, when it appeared in Pennsylvania in the Journal, Big C, and the Weekly Advertiser. Just a few weeks later, April 14, 1775, the first anti-slavery society in America was formed in Philadelphia, and Paine was a founding member. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Philadelphia was always a place of freedom, Charlton, for African Americans trying to, escape slavery, moving up north.
Yep.
And they implanted themselves in the city of brotherly love, I guess, at the time. But, they were advocates. They could see free men there, Charlton, and they advanced black society.
Yeah, they advanced black society, and everybody's benefited from it. You got to keep it valid. It's all fair and level war. I really do appreciate what the NBA is doing to honor the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and it's a fine thing to do, and it's about time that it's happened. I know a lot of people are looking forward to Major League Baseball. Everybody's trying to swing the bat for the fences, Big C. NBA basketball, who's going to make it into the playoff round and the play-in games? It's all fair and level where I hope that everybody can stay healthy in the world of NBA basketball. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, rumble, young man, rumble. With all you've got to use, how can you lose? Big C, what are you looking forward to in this sports universe?
Well, Charlton, baseball tonight is going to be hot. But teams are starting to get healthy once again and trying to make a move early in the season. And we're going to find out who's going to be the best at the halfway point. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, first responders. They're the best at every point, every day.
They're the best every day when they rise and shine, and you can too. All you got to do is rise and shine. You can rise and shine every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as my mama always said, that's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.